Julie Lythcott Haims. Welcome to Crazy Money.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Julie, let's start with the title of the first book that we're discussing today, How to Raise an Adult, Break Free of the Overparenting Trap and Prepare Your Kid for Success. Let's start by defining our terms. How should we define and model success for and with our kids?
Oh, gosh, that's a big question to start the day.
How are you, Julie? How's life?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Here in California.
Now.
I'm in California, so it's morning for me. And I know I'm talking to you in Atlanta, so it's early afternoon for you. And that's a really big question. Of course, the most important question, what is success? I put that in the subtitle of the book because I know every parent, of course, wants their kid to be successful. And yet I think we're really misguided about what that means. So, of course, it's the question to be asking. Let's define our terms. To me, success, first of all, is an internally derived definition. I am successful when I know I am leading a life that allows me to do work I'm good at and love. And I have some people in my life who love me as I am, no matter what. If a person has those two things going on, that's going to be a pretty happy life. And I think by definition, for me at least, that means success. Of course, where I live and perhaps where you live, success is this narrow definition, the right college, air quotes, the right career, air quotes, and IPO by 30, the Tesla, the trappings of money. Here in Silicon Valley, I think way too many of our kids grow up thinking I got to have that house, that car, that college bumper sticker, telling the world where I've been in order to be successful. But I got to tell you, I've been inside mansions of people with the most excruciatingly unhappy marriages and countless examples that all the money does not lead to happiness. So I think what we really want to interrogate is what's the relationship between happiness and success? To me, success is I'm feeling happy about my life. I define it on my own terms, and to hell with the people who don't understand what I do for a living or who I love.
Now, can we trust our children to define those terms for themselves? And at what age do we let them decide what that is? It's not 6, it's not 14. What age is it?
Do we let our children define that for themselves? Yeah, Paul, I don't think our children are pets on a leash that we're supposed to guide through life. Okay, so I think we got to be good role models for what a healthy, vibrant, happy, successful adult life looks like. And in so modeling it, show our children a future that we hope they would aspire to. If we are rich but miserable and telling our kids, you got to go to Wall Street, you got to do what I'm doing, you got to, all that matters is the house and the bank account and the great vacations we can take. But day to day, I'm unhappy. Your kid is taking away a message from that maybe I'm expected to go for the big money outcomes. And yet the people I see around me with the big money outcomes don't seem terribly happy. We have to be aware that we're signaling to our kids with everything we do and say, we're really telling them what matters most to us. So I think when we get right with ourselves and are leading lives of purpose and meaning and, that feel good to us, our children get the right messages. I think what you're saying is like, if my 6-year-old wants to be fill in the blank, unacceptable career. My 6-year-old wants to be an artist. Do I let them? I'll tell you this. My daughter is 20. She's an artist. For the first half of her life, I could not see, or I saw it, but I did not appreciate it. And it wasn't until I was sitting in my office hours with a Stanford student who was being forced to go to med school by her physician parents. She's the eldest of 3, 4.0, beautiful, polished, miserable. And I just leaned in. I was like, what's going on? And she's like, they're forcing me to do this. I'm just trying to please them. I think if I do it, they'll go easier on my younger siblings. And she told me what she really wanted to do was work with rescue animals. And I was there to advocate for her right to do that. I said, what would it take, for you to have that conversation with your parents? And she just shrugged her shoulders and cried. And that's when I realized my baby girl, half a life younger than this young woman in my office, my baby girl was presently unseen by me. I couldn't see her for the artist she was. I was like, yeah, she's an artist, but that's not going to get her into the right college. Working with other people's kids who were miserable on the air quotes right track of life helped me see my own children for who they actually are.
You did this when you were dean of freshmen at Stanford.
Correct? Right. That's right.
So what did you had the luxury or the awesome responsibility of being in that role of having these incredibly accomplished but not fully developed young adults share things with you that they wouldn't share with their own parents. What did you learn in that privileged role?
It was a privilege and it was a joy. I got to tell you, Paul, being with humans who are in the process of figuring their stuff out. I should have asked you if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast.
You can say whatever you want. We'll bleep the F word, but.
Oh, you'll bleep the F word. Okay. Working alongside humans in the process of working their shit out is a pretty humbling joy, to show up and just try to convey, I'm listening. I care about what's on your mind. I'm as interested in your dreams as I am in your fears, as I am in whatever you feel are your obligations. I'm here. I'm here for you. Not your parents, not your grandparents, not your extended family, not your ethnic community, not your peers, not whomever you fear is judging you about the choice you're trying to make about your career or your major or what have you. And what I think I learned is when you show up with humans with that kind of caring approach, the kind of unconditional, I see you, you matter to me because you're here. I'm not judging your choices. I'm trying to help you get clearer on who you are by listening well and asking back questions to further elucidate for you your own why. People will speak. I learned that people will open up, they'll share, they'll become very introspective, they'll start to give themselves permission to hear their own thoughts more clearly. And so when I encountered students who were in a jam because so-and-so expected such and such, I just was in anguish for them. I mean, I had pre-meds, and this is, you've mentioned that I was at Stanford, and I went there. I love the place. This is not a knock on Stanford or Stanford students. Any dean at any college could tell you that students are under tremendous pressure to major in econ or accounting or pre-med or whatever the other two acceptable majors are, in order to appease or please well-meaning, often uninformed parents. And I sort of lost my train of thought, but I guess what I'll end with is the pre-meds in particular would say to me, I don't want to be some of them, I don't want to be a doctor. My parents are making me. And I would say, well, when do you think you're going to stop leading life for them and start leading life for you? It's your life. And they would say, when I am a doctor, when I've got the lab coat and the stethoscope, then I'll have the authority. I will have done what they required. I will have proven to them that I could. And then I will claim the life that I want. And I would just shake my head at the wastefulness of all of that effort and performing.
With some of them, was it that specific a quid pro quo, like you're going to major in medicine or I'm not paying your tuition kind of thing?
It was that. It was, you're going to major in econ or I'm going to divorce your mother. Yeah, that was.
How are those two related?
Here's how they're related. You want me to break it down?
Sure.
I want to give the demographics, and I'm not trying to play to stereotypes. So I'm putting that caveat out there. Interracial marriage, Asian man, white woman, daughter is biracial. Asian man is an economist and has decided that his daughter's failure to be everything he needs her to be by way of her mathematics or quantitative skills are the result of the wife not either caring about this enough or passing on the right genes. I don't know, but father resented mother's participation in all of this. And so that was his, that's how he saw the world. And he was paying the bills. And he sent his brother weekly to come to this student's dorm room to make sure she was studying her econ. The uncle showed up at the dorm. And this student was crying in my office and was dealing with was brilliant and highly accomplished and just did not want to go into econ and was doing very poorly and was depressed. And yeah, that kind of pressure. Now that's a very, very specific, unique example, but there were so many different forms of that.
You write that as dean of freshmen at Stanford, you saw students who arrived on campus with an impressive list of accomplishments, but no sense of independence. These students were lost, anxious, and depressed. Let's go back to early parenting. Where does this kind of thing start?
I'm questioning that quote that you just read to me. I want to be clear that this was not all students. This was some students. This was, a concern I had about some, by no means all. Where does it start? It starts when we see our kids as our possession, our project, our pet. Many of us from the very beginning have in mind that it is our job to walk this kid down the path of life as if they are our dog, as if they are a dog we're going to enter in the Westminster Dog Show one day, going for best in breed, so that the world can see what a terrific dog we've raised. Too many parents behave that way from the start, which means being in charge of everything the kid does, being in charge of every decision the kid makes, making plans for the kid, making sure the kid executes on the plans, being there to sweep up the mess if the kid made a mess, with marching down the path the parent laid out for them. It begins at the beginning. It's not, and so, even though the kid's trying to show you, I want to be independent, I want to tie my own shoes, and you're like, no, we're in a hurry, I'm going to tie your shoes. Then you end up tying your 5-year-old shoes and your 9-year-old shoes. Right? Even though your kid's like, I'm an artist, or I love rocks, or I love whatever. And you're like, no. In our family, we're lawyers. The kids are showing us evidence early on that they want to be their own person, that they want to learn to do things and think for themselves and do for themselves. And if our mindset is, no, I'm not safe, I'm not okay, I'm not worthwhile unless my kid is doing everything that I want them to do, and I have made them look the way I need them to look. That's the problem starts early. People ask me, when do you start giving your kids independence? And I say, why did you stop? When they started to learn to walk, they're walking away, and your job is to make sure they don't walk into traffic, but, within a reasonable space, give them space to learn to walk and stand, and they're going to fall. And that's the point. They're going to fall and get themselves back up. That's the only way they grow stronger and more capable and more confident. And all of parenting is supposed to be about searching for opportunities for them to figure out who they are, figure out what they're good at, figure out what they love, get more skilled, get more competent and confident. Too many of us are doing the opposite. We're just continuing to decide for them and plan and do, and they become utterly dependent on us. They might be highly accomplished in a GPA, test score, activities, sports, leadership sense. And yet, if we have been driving the way they dream, driving the path they're on, driving the choices they make, they arrive at a place like university and they look around and they still need someone to tell them what to do next because they're unaccustomed to their own thoughts being what matter.
So my kids are 10 and 12, a boy and a girl. And as I'm reading this a month ago, I was thinking, ooh, I could have done that better. When I was thinking about 5 and 6-year-old parenting, right?
Yeah.
And so it's still very worth reading, but especially great if you can read this book when you've got younger kids, because there's opportunities at every stage of development to give them more autonomy in how they live their life.
It's not too late for you, Paul. It's not too late for you or your kids. And let me tell you, I came to this awareness when my kids were 10 and 12. Okay. That story I told you about my daughter, Avery, the artist, who I was demeaning in her, like, that artistry doesn't matter. An artist is not an acceptable career. I think she was 10 when I came to that realization. My son was 10. He's 2 years older than her. When I realized I'm cutting this kid's meat and I shouldn't be cutting his meat at 10 because I'm trying to send him to Stanford at 18. And you got to teach a lot of skills between cut meat and go to university. And so I was railing against the overparenting I was seeing on my campus, which was reflective of what was happening on all campuses. I was able to tell other parents what to stop doing. I was able to try to motivate young adults to seize their agency out of the clutches of this well-meaning set of parents and do for themselves. And I'm doing this year over year, and I'm writing op-eds, and I come home and I have that aha moment of cutting my 10-year-old's meat when I was like, oh shit, I am that parent. And that made me motivated, frankly, to dive in and understand the problem. And one of the key things I learned, Paul, was chores, which I had not been giving my kids. A family that gives chores to kids raises kids who know how to have a work ethic, who implicitly have a work ethic, who know that Grunt work has to be done, and I'm expected to do it. That serves them well in the workforce. This longitudinal study of humans, the Harvard Grant study, shows, among plenty of other things, success, professional success, back to that term, in life is correlated with having done chores as a child or having had a part-time job in high school because of that work ethic, pitch in mentality. So I didn't even know chores were important until I started doing research for how to raise an adult. And I began to pivot in my own house. I'm glad I did. My kids are now 22 and 20, and I'm still working on repatterning some things, and it's worthwhile. So it's not too late for you or anybody.
So you live in Palo Alto, the capital of high performance people and parenting in the world. To what extent is helicopter parenting correlated with affluence?
Oh, it's very correlated with affluence. I'm not a researcher, right? I'm a former lawyer who became a college dean, who's now a writer. I have not conducted my own research. I have read lots of.
We're going to talk about how you wasted your law degree.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so but observationally, anecdotally, I can tell you that helicopter parenting is correlated with the means to helicopter parent. Okay, so parents who have extra time and extra money on their hands are those who are dropping everything to bring forgotten things constantly to their kids' school, backpacks, lunches, sporting equipment, coats. Working class parents can't do that. Okay, it's the privileged parents who can drop everything to rescue. It's the privileged parents who can typically rewrite the essay so the kid gets an A. It's the privileged parents who are doing their kid's science project. It's the privileged parents who feel they have the right to argue with coaches and umpires and referees and other parents, right? It's the sense of I have the means, I have the time, I have the right to do this. And you know, people do it because it looks like it works. Like all of this help leads to very short-term results. I got them extra playing time. You know, I got them on the A team. I got them an A, right? But long-term, the kid hasn't learned how to do the work, to make the effort, to bounce back and try again, that would allow them to earn those things for themselves. So you've sort of bought yourself a permanent role in your kid's life as their concierge or handler.
You quote the book Excellent Sheep, and there's a quote in it that's pretty profound. The elite have purchased self-perpetuation at the price of their kids' happiness.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
We think we're doing our kids a favor by setting them up for all the right things, and yet we're making them miserable in the process. How are we doing that, and what can we change to?
Yeah, so we think we've set them up for all the right things. We're making them miserable, and here's what's missing in the equation. You can't set somebody up for life. You can't give somebody a life. You can rent or buy them an amazing place to live. You can put all the right art on the walls. You can procure the best food for them and the furnishings, and they will sit there in that life you've created and feel this existential impotence, which is, I didn't do any of this. I didn't choose any of this. I didn't go through the motion. I didn't get the buzz, as Kelly Corrigan recently put it to me. I didn't get the buzz of like, wow, I took care of that. There's an example actually in my book of a highly privileged young man who was at brand name college, brand name law school. His mother found the law school apartment, negotiated the lease with the landlord, got all the furnishings, set it up. His friends were like, damn, your apartment is so nice compared to mine. And he was, privileged and miserable. He'd look at their holes in the wall. Like, I would rather be living here because you found it. You found the bed, you found that little wall hanging, you're making, right? It sounds, it's like poor little rich kid. But what's happening is we're actually undermining their agency, Paul. We all hunger and yearn to do things for ourselves. That's how we derive a psychological sense of our own existence. I know I exist because I made a plan and executed on it and something happened and it may not have been the best thing, but it's mine. This is where we're undermining them. It's not just that they're unhappy. When we overhelp, we deprive them of developing agency, or self-efficacy is a similar term in the field of psychology. And if you lack agency or self-efficacy, you're going to be depressed. And you might also be anxious. The anxiety comes because we're acting like every little thing matters. This piece of homework matters. This project matters. How did you do on your test? What happened to the sign? Like all of our incessant questions, asking them about the minutia of their lives tells them, my parents are so worried about every little thing of my life. I have to make sure everything is fine in order to be okay. Like we're doing this. We are harming our kids. We need to back the heck off, get a life, and your kid could get one too.
There's no more emblematic crucible than the college admissions process where all these things come together. What should we be striving for like how would you define success in the college admissions prospect in the college admissions process? If we're truly thinking about what's good for our kids, how should we think about that process?
Oh, in no particular order. College will always be there. It doesn't necessarily have to happen 3 months, 6 months after graduating high school. Okay. Number one, I say that because not every kid seems interested in or ready to engage the college admission process. If you as a parent are like, well, he's so busy or she's not interested or she won't focus or he just can't, so I have to do it for them. That is a blinking red neon light saying, stop, stop, stop. If your kid can't engage the process, your kid isn't ready yet to go. That's not a failure. Don't be upset. Don't be embarrassed. It's a perfect opportunity to say, all right, high school's a lot. Maybe you want to take a year to work. You want to do a structured gap year. Maybe you want to go to community college. You should apply to College Kid when you are ready to engage the process. That is step one. I think number two, appreciate that America has 3,000 accredited four-year colleges, not 20. And you may only have heard of 20 or 15 or 35 or some small number, but in a country that has 3,000, the top 5% is 150 schools. Okay. All 150 of them are worth your while. When you get a book that has 200, that's a very small percentage of the top. It's like 7% of the top schools in America. Okay. So we've got to get out of the name brand arms race. A college is not a pair of jeans or a soda. It's an experience. And there's so much that differentiates them from large to medium to tiny to rural to suburban to urban to, what they offer and what they're next to. And it's fit is what matters. It's not brand name. There's so many people who choose the brand name, even though it's not the right place for them. And here's where research from Malcolm Gladwell is really apt. He says, there's clear evidence that you ought to go to a school one tier below the so-called best one you got into because you're going to be top there. You're going to have access to the best goodies and opportunities. And that's what's going to open up opportunities for greater success in grad school or the workplace. So there's some really, there's just misinformation and a lot of peer pressure. And, our kids in my community are just desperate to get into Stanford, which is currently, I think, accepting, 2% of the people who apply. So our kids feel like failures and rejects at a time of life when they should have, unfurl their wings and let the wind carry them off into, exciting new places. And I think it's the job of the adults around them, educators and parents alike, to delight when a kid is going not to a big brand name, when a kid is going to a school that's a little bit less on the radar or not at all, for the grownups to say, oh, I'm so excited for that kid. That's a fantastic choice. Instead of like, oh, too bad.
Even if the bumper sticker is not going to look as good on my car.
So who's the bumper sticker for, right? This is our ego. That's the point. Like, go to therapy, figure out why you need that bumper sticker, why you're so damn insecure. Not you, Paul, but people listening. And look, I get it. I went to Stanford. I met my husband there. I took my kids there for preschool. I'm working with other people's kids there. There was a piece of me that really needed that. And then I started to see my kids for who they were and what they were really interested in and good at. And became more interested in them finding a better fit. But I wanted that bumper sticker for a while. I get it. But look at how our egos are. That's when it's really clear that our kids are like our trophy. Like, look what I've done. my kids at fill in the blank school. Look what I've done.
Right.
No, go do something. Actually, go do work or volunteer or contribute somehow to society in a way that you can be proud of, and let your kid lead their life.
So it's a good mantra to remind ourselves during the college admissions process, and really all during parenting, that it's not about me. It's not about the parents here. It's about the kid.
Right.
All right. I listed some adjectives. This is, again, me, the parent, who started off this interview by saying, should I let my kid make his own decision? But I was thinking about some adjectives that I think I would like my children described like this when they become adults. So listen to this, if you would, and offer some more that I'm missing, or tell me if I'm misconstruing these. Okay. Industrious, responsible, empathetic, kind, interesting, hopeful, self-aware, and open-minded. What else should I have on that list? I don't mean perfect. I'm just saying, like, these are attributes that I think would be good for a kid to have.
I think it's a great list, Paul. Industrious, responsible, empathetic, kind, hopeful, self-aware, open-minded. And I missed the fifth one. Begins with an I.
Interesting.
Interesting or interested?
Excellent.
Which one?
I put interesting, but interested is probably.
Yeah. I would add maybe interested / curious,
Yeah.
And I also think humble is important. I think I do think we want to, right? It's a recognition that there are 7 billion of us, and that none of us is more important or less important than any other. And that humans from all walks of life are out there, and we ought to be humble and curious, humble about what we don't know, humble about the ways in which our life has created all kinds of blank spots and blind spots about what matters. We just don't know so much. And a humble curiosity, I don't mean to be tamping the self down. I'm a big believer in the self, but just sort of like, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. Be a little humble, a little curious about what you might not know, and what someone else's perspective might or experience might teach you, or why it might matter a little bit more in this situation.
And if we treat our kids like they are the only one, well, why wouldn't they develop into this person who they're the only one, right?
Yeah, this is another interesting byproduct of all of this seemingly helpful overhelp. Here, I'm drawing upon the work of Lori Gottlieb, an amazing psychotherapist in LA.
She's been on the show. She's been
on the show. She wrote, maybe you should talk to someone, and she's quoted heavily in my new book for young adults, Your Turn. And she and I were riffing on, why is it that so many young adults are struggling in relationship these days? This is a pre-pandemic conversation. And she said, my hypothesis is that they've been so overmanaged around their interpersonal relationships. Play was arranged by parents. And if kids weren't getting along, parents or educators swooped in and told them how to sort it out, told them what to say. They haven't had these natural opportunities to bump into one another in childhood and kind of sort it out. Sports have been curated by parents. Play has been curated. And parents have attended to their every need. Parents who have attended to their every need may have raised young people who are now young adults who think that's what love looks like. So they're in a relationship with somebody, and they're upset about something, or they're not happy, or what have you. And they think love means the other person drops everything to meet my needs, because that's what parents did. They don't appreciate that the other person with whom they're in relationship also has opinions and needs and experiences and so on. And that it has to be this sort of mutual communication, cooperation, right? All of that, commiseration, compromise. And so if they've been overattended in their human relationships as children, maybe they're not equipped as young adults. And so they do have this sort of, I matter most. I expect other people to fall in line to handle my life for me. It's really an underserving of them.
So as a pivot point between the two books, if you tell a story about over-involved parenting early in young professionals' careers, like how bad can it get? I read some of these anecdotes and I was horrified.
Well, we have HR managers, HR professionals saying that parents are submitting resumes, setting up interviews. Then they call the candidate. They're like, your interview's on Wednesday. They're like, what interview? They don't even know. Or parents who show up for the interview and so they're in the lobby telling the kid what to say. And And that, it's helpful, right? I'm just trying to help my kid, but you look ridiculous because your kid is 22 and it's like you're holding the hand of a 22-year-old crossing the street. At some point, you want to have confidence that life has taught that 22-year-old how to cross the street, so you don't have to be there anymore outside of significant special needs, of course. So I've heard those examples. I've also heard the more aggressive examples, like the phone call to the boss or the HR manager. Why didn't you give my kid a job? And of course, the slick response is, if your kid showed half as much initiative taking as you are right now, maybe I would have hired them, right? Like the last thing you want is a parent saying, why didn't you give my child a job? Or arguing about the raise or the performance bonus or the performance review. But I think the one that takes the cake that you may remember from the book is the investment banker on Wall Street, who was at work on the weekend, working 7 days a week, because, that's what investment banking requires, and they get paid handsomely for it. But the mom of the son, the investment banker, was upset that her kid was working so hard. So she called the boss and found his number and called him and gave him a piece of her mind. And on Monday, when the kid came into the big office building in New York to go to work, there was simply a box of his stuff at the security guard stand. And it was all of his belongings, from his desk, and a little note that said, ask your mother. He'd been fired.
Oh my God. I just can't even imagine.
mean,
but when I graduated from college, my father sent me a short list of money I had borrowed from him and said, commence payment immediately. Good luck.
Love it.
Which was, and the next 2 years were really 3-4 years actually were pretty hard financially. And it was really me grappling with, how do I just get by? How do I how do I make it without, I always knew I could go back to my parents' house if things got terrible, but they didn't want it. I didn't want it. But how do we give our kids that, okay, how do I figure this out on my own? How do we let go?
Yeah. You're describing an example that doesn't feel as relevant to today, does it? Right. First of all, parents and their children are so much closer. Few parents, comparatively speaking, tend to speak to their kids today the way your dad spoke to you. There's been a closeness between parents and kids with the way the millennials were raised and now Gen Z. It's beautiful. You're probably closer to your 10 and 12-year-old than was the case between you and your parents when you were that age. Certainly is true for me. So there's this closeness, which makes it super hard to kick them out of the nest.
Or kick them off the family cell phone plan.
Or kick them off the cell phone plan or whatever other subsidies there are. The closeness of the bond makes it harder to do what might be called tough love. So we're all, I think, finding our way through that. And this is where I like to remind parents, we succeed as parents when our offspring can fend without us. Okay. That's our biological imperative, Paul. I like to remind people we're mammals. We're mammals with cell phones and cars, but like every mammal parent, we get our offspring for a period of time that's meant to inculcate all the skills so we can have confidence that we can go lay down somewhere and die and our kids can carry on. Okay. Let's get down to brass tacks.
But
so
that hurts. That
does hurt. It does hurt. But I think the point is a dependence on us leaves them helpless once we're unable, right? So the real way to be loving as a parent is to ensure that your kid can do every single thing they need to do, which isn't accomplished by doing it all for them, including managing money, including paying bills and so on. So I think what we've got to say within the context of much closer relationships than was the case for Gen X and boomers as kids, we've got to say, I love you so much. And because I love you, I need for you to start doing more for yourself because I won't be here forever. And let me teach you 3 things. Let's focus on 3 things that I've been doing that you need to start doing for yourself. I've been making your travel arrangements to and from school. Let's sit down. Let me teach you how it's done. And then I'll watch you do it. And then you'll be able to do it yourself. I make all your appointments, doctor, dentist, what have you. Let me walk you through those steps. I always do your medication refills. Let me teach you how to do it. My point here is I'm underscoring, you don't just hand it off to them. You don't carry a person in your arms for 18, 20, 22 years and then set them down and expect them to be able to walk. That's just cruel and really misinformed. Okay, there's actually a 4-step method to teaching any kid any skill. First, you do it for them. Then you do it with them where you're still doing it, but kind of narrating, teaching, telling. Maybe they participate in bits of it. You swap roles for step 3. You watch them do it. You're still there for the just in case. Step 4, they can do it without you. We're really good at step 1, doing it for them or doing it with them where they're there, but we're kind of doing all the thinking. We're not really handing over the reins ever to step 3. They can't get to step 4. So all of these things have to be taught, and we can make it about, I love you and I want you to be skilled. And I bet you want to be more independent. Let me teach you how.
So there's the logistical of life. And then there's sort of the bigger picture. Who am I? How do I become my own person? You talk about guiding, or you write about how to create your own identity for these young adults. There's a 3-step process that starts with finding your voice.
That's chapter 5 of my new book, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult for Young Adults or anybody struggling with adulting. It's chapter 5 of 13, but I actually wrote it first because this was my way into the whole subject. And it was me channeling the voice or the way of being as a college dean in office hours with a young person, where I was trying to tease out from them or for them the sound of their own wants and dreams and fears and all of that.
Because they've never given themselves permission.
Right. They've been told the right track is econ, law, business, medicine, entrepreneurship. And for those who resonate with that, then life is good. But if there's a piece of them going, but I love the outdoors. I really want my work to be about the outdoors, or I love the performing arts. I really want, they're just this constant, like, I can't, I shouldn't, I won't. What do I say at Thanksgiving if, all of that. And I'm here quoting the late poet Mary Oliver, who said, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I very much love the mindset that it is your one wild, untamed, unplanned, emerging and precious, finite, rare, beautiful life. And so I'm interested in each one of us claiming that. And the 3 steps, I think, as I articulate them are listen for your voice, and have the courage to honor what it says. What's the 3rd step? I can't even remember now.
Find your voice, stop judging it.
Okay. Stop judging it.
Go in the direction it's telling you.
That's right. The stop judging it is for me implied in go in the direction. Yeah. Absolutely. My own life story is that, look, I became a college dean as my second career because I'd gone to law school to help humans. I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer.
Why did you go to law? Yeah. Why did you?
I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. I was Thurgood Marshall was my hero. He'd litigated Brown versus Board and became our first African-American Supreme Court justice. And I just revered who he was and how he was. And I wanted to be one of those lawyers who would make life better for people who were mistreated. And I went off to law school, and I now know at 54, and I wrote about this a lot in my middle book, Real American, which is my memoir on race, on being Black and biracial in white spaces. I was so insecure at 25. So I'm at law school, and I'm trying to prove to everybody who I think matters, white mainstream society, that I'm smart and I'm capable and I'm, worthy of their admiration instead of their disdain and scorn. And so even though I went to law school to be a public servant through law, I took a corporate law. I sought and got and took a corporate law offer and came out here to Silicon Valley to be an intellectual property litigator. And it was not, I was good at it, but I didn't love it. It was not at all aligned with my sense of why I was on the planet. And so I was well paid with the briefcase and the Ann Taylor suit and miserable. And that was one of my earliest aha moments, that the money alone will not bring you happiness. And that if other people think that I'm successful and they're applauding me for this job, which they were, I can still feel empty inside because there's something in me, my voice telling me this is not why we're here. And I went and became a college administrator, I think in part out of tremendous empathy for humans who might find themselves similarly stuck on the right path and unhappy, air quotes, right path. And I wanted to work with young people and ward them off the air quotes right path, which is really for many the wrong path. I wanted to help them come to that consciousness sooner than I had.
So I was watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer over the holidays, and the most intriguing character, this is inarguable, by the way, so don't even try to argue for any of the other characters. The most interesting character in that is Hermie the elf, who wants to be a dentist. Mm-hmm. I see Hermie everywhere. You know, he's got this killer job, right? Like in Silicon Valley, being a dentist is basically like being the 10th employee at Uber or Airbnb or something, right? You're set. You've got the right gig. You're in with the right people. Santa is Elon Musk in this metaphor. And so, but he doesn't feel it on a soul level. He wants to be a dentist. Can't really explain why. And everybody tells him he's crazy. How would you tell young 25-year-olds today to interpret Hermie's predicament?
First of all, I don't remember this at all, so I need to go back and watch Rudolph. Thank you for giving me a reason to. We just rewatched The Grinch with my kids, and okay.
Hermie wants to be a dentist. He wants to be a dentist. He's this elf, and
this is what I would say. I would say, Hermie, tell me more about why you want to be a dentist. I would reflect back to Hermie all the things Hermie's saying about his why, and I would say, I think that sounds amazing. What's keeping you from going in that direction? Let's talk about who or what's in your way, who's judging you, whose approval do you seek? What's that about? Let's interrogate that. What would it take for you to give yourself permission to listen to your own voice more than you're listening to those other voices? And how can I support you in doing that? I believe in you, Hermie, as a dentist. And I want, if you're looking for permission from somebody else to go in that direction, which by the way, you don't need, but if you're looking for it, I'll give it to you.
That's great. And perfect segue to the next question. At what age should somebody know what they want to be when they grow up?
There is no age. There is no should. What does it mean to grow up? Right. I'm a continual reinventor, right? I've always wanted to help humans. I thought law was the path. I took the wrong path within law. I was a university administrator for 14 years. I absolutely loved that. I'm now writing books and speaking about them and get to talk with interesting folks like you and your listeners. I am continually redefining and refining who I am and how I am in this one life. So what I would say is, by the end of your 20s, you want to be super clear on, here's what I'm good at, the way of being in the workplace. You know, these are the ways I like to show up at work. For some people, it's research. I love research. I don't want to see a person, but give me all the data. For some, it's I'm a people person. I want to be out front. You know, I like to sell things, or I like to work with money, or I like to write, you know, or I want to dig. I want to use my hands. I want to know what brings you that, like I'm in the zone when I'm what? You get to answer that. Time falls away when I'm what? Okay. Understand what it is that lights you up by way in terms of how you, with your body and mind, like to show up, and also understand the causes and issues and things in life that matter to you. You're trying to connect your skill set with some industry or way of being in the world around work. And it takes time to discern that. I think your 20s are years where you're in jobs and you're like, oh, I hate this. Why? Ask yourself, what do I hate? You know, which part of this do I hate? Is there any part of this I like? Let me go and carve that piece out and go find a job that allows me to do that. You're continuing to iterate about your knowledge of yourself. And after 3 or 4 jobs, then you'll be like, okay, this is where I thrive. This is what I'm good at. This is what I want. So I do think the 20s are, particularly with humans living 100 years, the 20s are that time. And I realize there's a lot of privilege in saying that, because a lot of people are like, shut up, lady. You know, my kid needs to get out of this house and go find a job because we're working class and what have you. I respect and understand that. I've not lived that myself. I do think regardless, we all have this intrinsic need to to do work that feels right for our bodies and our minds, whatever it may be, and to seek further opportunities to grow in those spaces, regardless of where we started.
And how do you square that with the need for people to be able to pay their own rent and feed themselves?
Yeah. I think the missing variable in that equation is, where are they living? I had so many students who wanted to be, for example, I want to be an EMT. But everyone says, oh, but you're so smart, you should be a doctor. I want to be a nurse. Oh, you're so smart, you should be a doctor. I want to teach fourth graders. Oh, don't you want to go for a PhD and teach college students? A lot of smart, highly accomplished, academically speaking people are told that their own dreams and desires are beneath them, which I find incredibly offensive. I would say to that kid, excellent. EMTs are on the front line saving lives constantly. They're constantly dealing with patients. If that's what you want, more power to you. Where are you going to live so that you can have an affordable, your salary as an EMT allows you to have a decent apartment, right? If you want to be a wilderness naturalist, don't live in Manhattan with rents that are up here and your salary is down here. Go do that work where the salary will afford the cost of living, right? We'll pay for the cost of living, whatever it is. In other words, making big choices about where to live. For a kid in Silicon Valley, you might not be able to get your own place here because it's highly hostile to people who make less than $120,000 a year, right? Okay, so be it. There are plenty of towns that are great for young adults. They have jobs. Cost of living is reasonable. They have the kind of social life, nightlife that young people want. And I think those are the cities of, the next decade. Let's find those places and let's move there in droves. And, it's sort of an anti-coastal thing in some ways. I think my point is it's possible to do all of these things. My daughter's an artist, right? I finally accept that. And I'm proud of her. I'm ashamed that I was not proud of that for the first 8 or 10 years of her life. And she's in college now and she's exploring the performing arts and arts management. She's getting internships in arts management. She's teaching dance. She's working backstage. That girl is so happy. And she knows it's on her to figure out, how do I save my money? Where am I going to put? How am I going to sort this out? She understands that that's the obligation. Figure it out. And she will.
That's exactly where I was going to go next. At a certain point, we just have to trust that our kids are human beings who have survived over hundreds of thousands of years, and they will figure it out one way or the other.
And it is theirs to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it. Julie, I really enjoyed reading both your books. I really enjoyed reading both your books, How to Raise an Adult, Break Free of the Overparenting Trap, and Prepare Your Kid for Success, and Your Turn, How to Be an Adult, for those kids who are leaving the nest and venturing out on their own. Where can our listeners find out more about you?
I just want to thank you and them for being with us, you for having me and them for being with us over the course of this convo. Really appreciate every listener, and whatever came up for you, listener, it matters. Something I said or Paul said might have really resonated, started your little soul vibrating a little bit, and pay attention to that, because that's a little knock from you to you, like, hey, pay attention to this. And I just want to reinforce that. You can find me, probably best place, my website, julielythcotthaims.com. No hyphen, julielythcotthaims.com. And my social everywhere is Lythcott Haims, whether Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse. I'm on all those places, the same handle, Lythcott Haims. I do have a weekly blog called Julie's Pod. That's at jlythcotthaims.bulletin.com. And that's where I write about the stuff that's coming up for me, about my life, but also about what I think of what's going on in our world. And I invite you to comment and participate. And I even have a hotline for people who can't call me or can't publicly comment. It's 1-877-HI-JULIE. It's a little red phone where you can leave a message, and I report out on my Facebook Lives on Monday about what the calls were and what advice I want to offer. So I got a lot of different things going on. I love to interact with people who care about the issues that I write and speak about. So please do follow in whatever medium makes most sense for you.
We'll put links to a few of those in the show notes. And Julie, it was a real pleasure to speak with you today. I really enjoyed your work. I got a lot out of it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm rooting for all of us to make it.
Me too.
And by which I mean, be happy, be good, be curious. All of those good adjectives you listed. I'm rooting for all of us to find our way there. It isn't at all about how much money is in our wallets.
And scene.